Hi, I'm Crystal from Canada's Food Island. We are out here in beautiful Morell, Prince Edward Island, Canada's Food Island. We're at Atlantic Shellfish today, and we're with Bobby McIsaac. So Bobby, tell me a little bit about the owners that own Atlantic Shellfish.
Yeah, so the company is now owned by Jacob and Cindy Dockendorf, their brother and sister, and they took over the company from their father, who started the business back in 1996.
That's awesome. I just love that it's staying in the family. Now tell me about the quality of your oysters and what makes them such a favorite here on the island.
So we work with a lot of growers on PEI, and we've also farmed them ourselves, but everything is about the quality of the oyster. So everyone we work with knows that it's about the consistency, the quality. It takes a little extra work to get it that way. But then even when we get it here, we go through multiple different grading processes. We pre-process, we clean the oysters, then we package them again and grade them again to make sure that by the time it reaches the customer, you're getting nothing but the absolute best quality.
That's awesome. Now tell me a little bit about your tumbling process, because I heard there's a lot of tumbling going on here at Atlantic Shellfish.
There's a lot of tumbling that goes on to
and
get
we're
the
not
oysters
talking acrobats, no.
Occasionally maybe,
Okay,
but
okay.
no, mostly the oysters. So as they're growing up through their life cycle, we have to tumble them about once a year, and that does a couple of things. One, it sizes them out. It gives us a chance to sort them and size them on the way through the growth cycle. But the other thing it does is it roughs up the shells a little bit and will deepen the cup and give them that more consistent shape that everybody's looking for. So growing oysters is a lot like kind of gardening, some different things where you need to stress them a little bit to really make them respond and react the way that you want to, and it gives us a little more control over the oyster.
Yeah. Now tell me a little bit about, like, from the oyster to actually an oyster that you get as a consumer. How long does that take? It's not just overnight.
No, it's a lot longer than most people think. So most of the oysters that we farm and sell, they're on average 5-6 years old. So we start with collecting wild spat, and then we'll put that into our bags. They grow out, and throughout that stage we'll be tumbling them, sizing them out, reducing the densities, and we have to flip them every few weeks to control what else is trying to grow on the bags. So it's a lot of labor that goes in every single year, and then sinking our gear for the winter and raising it up in the spring. But yeah, so by the time that somebody gets our oysters, it's about 6 years old, and there's been a lot of effort put into it to make sure that it's just right.
A lot of tumbling, a lot of love, and that's what makes it some of the best oysters here on the island. Now tell me a little bit about the miroir of the island and how that contributes to the flavor of the oyster.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest things that's why we have different brands of oysters and why it's important where oysters come from. So miroir is, if you're familiar with wine, it's like the terroir, where things that grow around the grapes inspire the flavor of those grapes. But with oysters, it's the exact same thing, except miroir, it's in the water. So in different bays and inlets, you'll have different sorts of vegetation. There could be eelgrass or sea lettuce or a few different varieties, and that all contributes to what is going into the oyster, because oysters are filter feeders, so they're just feeding on whatever's in the water. So you can get oysters from one bay or inlet, then you get much more of kind of a grassy note, and other times you'll get more of like a kale, sea lettuce sort of note, and every bay has a slightly different flavor.
Yeah, and you can check that out on the social shell and our oyster map and guide coming soon as well. Now, you were talking about oysters being such a sustainable product. Tell me a little bit about your packaging, because you also switched to that sexy packaging that we're going to see in a moment that is sustainable as well.
Yeah, that's right. So oysters and aquaculture in general is the most sustainable food source that you can get. And we want to accentuate that, because to get the oysters growing, we need the environment to be as clean as possible, right? So our packaging, we were one of the first to switch to 100% recyclable plastic packaging. And then to complement that, for people that don't have access to recycling, if they can't do it or don't want to be bothered with the hassle, we also offer wooden packaging, which is completely compostable. And then we also offer reusable, like shopping bags, what you're familiar with in a grocery store.
Oh, those are such great options.
So recently though, we're switching our branding to Oyster, and we're switching from old Atlantic Shellfish packaging into some new sorts of packaging, new imagery, new branding, and so far it seems to be getting good feedback, and we're pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how many oyster brands do you have here at Atlantic Shellfish?
So we offer 5 different brands, and they're all from different parts of the island. So we've got Savage Blondes from Savage Harbor, South Lake, a few other ones around, but A lot of our customers like to have variety to offer on their menu, so we try and accommodate that.
That's great. Now, what kind of markets do you ship your product to?
Most of our markets end up in restaurants, so we ship to a lot of different distributors, PEI across Canada. A lot of it goes to the States, but yeah, I'd say 90% ends up in restaurants, and then there's the few oyster aficionados that'll pick up a box and take home.
Oh, that's nice. So how would I get your product?
If you're on PEI, the easiest way is to go to MR Seafood. They're like mostly our sole representative on PEI. But other than that, if you're not on PEI, you just have to check with your local fish shop and oyster houses, and they'll be able to get in touch with us.
Okay. You can also check out thesocialshell.com, look at where to buy, and you'll be able to find Atlantic Shellfish as well. Now, Bobby, I have to ask, you obviously love oysters. What's your favorite way to eat oysters?
I mean, my favorite way is fresh out of the water, just shucked and eaten raw, no fancy dressings or anything. But occasionally I can be convinced to get into an oyster Rockefeller or a deep fried oyster or something like that.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Now, I think we're going to get a sneak peek of your facility as well here.
We might be able to see a little something that's going on. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go check it out.
All right.
So much, Bobby. So what's your website one more time so we can check us out?
You can check us out at atlanticshellfish.com or look up Atlantic Shellfish on Instagram or Facebook.
Awesome. You saw it here on beautiful Prince Edward Island, Canada's Food Island. Thanks so much for tuning in.